Good morning. It is Tuesday, June 16th, 2025. And I'm here at Home Depot getting some supplies. I'm just going to kind of walk the parking lot for about 8 minutes to do a short video. And this is concerning the fairness or unfairness of society and leftover women. Like, I'm watching these videos where in China, the men are really hardcore in terms of age and selecting women for just consideration for marriage, and they're basically saying if you're over 28, 27, you're leftover. There's something that just happened to you between the ages of 15 to 24 that just sets you on a course to not get married. And for you to go to one of these marriage parks or any of these dating groups and things like that, or matchmakers, to find a husband at such a young age, old age, you really don't have a shot. And they're saying it's not fair. And I'm just kind of wondering, well, what would be fair? Everybody can just kind of talk out the side of their mouth and say things, and it sounds reasonable, it sounds like it makes sense, but what would be fair? I'm really curious to find out what a woman would actually think is fair. Because if water is wet, the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, you have seasons come, you got, winter, then followed by spring, then followed by summer, and then followed by the fall. I mean, it's like, that's just how things are ordered. And you can't get upset at somebody for just moving in the rhythm of nature. It's kind of like when a human being is born, he's an infant, then he becomes a toddler, then he becomes a child, then he becomes an older child, then he becomes a young adult, then he becomes a adult, then he becomes a matured adult, then he becomes middle-aged, then he becomes older, and then he becomes old man, old woman. So these are just natural milestones. It's not fair that at 60 years old, you lose a lot of your vitality compared to how you were when you were 20. But you do. That's just a milestone. It's not an issue of fairness or unfairness. This is just nature. This is just the natural course of things. And the sooner we recognize these things for what they are, we can really integrate and embrace and handle these things appropriately. I would say most of the women in China and many women in the West have basically thought that this youthful beauty ride was never going to end. And this is the mistake women make. And when they see the outcomes not what they expected, that's when it becomes unfair, because I really thought that it was going to be like this, when it turns out to be something totally contrary to what they actually assumed. They assumed, oh, I'm beautiful, and this fun ride of beauty is never going to end. And the cool thing about that is it's really unfair that a woman should be able to just come in to the world with all of these free gifts that nature has given her to put her at an advantage over men, to the degree that if a woman really plays her cards right, she won't have to really work a day in her life. Most women, if they play their cards right, they won't have to really do a lot of hard work in terms of, surviving. You'll be able to survive if you play your cards right. If you don't play your cards right, you're going to get sucked into a world where you're going to feel like you have to work to achieve, you have to do all these other things in order to get the life that you want. And I would say for the most part, most people work with this hope that they're going to work so hard to where they'll never have to work another day in their life. And it's just not, it's not a reasonable, it's not a practical thing to consider. And I would just say, if you look around, many people followed their dreams. And for many people, what was the outcome? The outcome was they're still broke busters living at home with their mother, whether they're man or woman. I'm going to go home and stay with my mother, or I'm never going to leave home because it's easier for me to stay here and only pay $300-400 in rent and not have the pressure of meeting these other milestones that are socially given. For example, the milestone for a man is to hopefully by the time he's 18 to 20, he's put himself in a position to leave his parents' house and to build and create a home and a life for himself. Now, there are exceptions to this rule, but those exceptions, I would say, are for those men that don't want to rise up to meet these expectations. Because I'll just tell you, I raised 4 young men, and these young men, when they were in elementary school and even going through high school, they had high expectations for themselves. But they were all dreamers. They wanted to be rappers, entertainers. And the oldest one, the oldest son that I had, he wanted to be a rapper and a music producer. And he left to go to Florida to try to bring this dream to fruition, because one of his heroes, one of the people who he admired, was Pharrell, the musician Pharrell. And Pharrell started his music career in Florida, so he wanted to kind of see if he could have the lightning strike the second time for him. And I made him make a commitment to me that if you don't make it by your 21st birthday, please go back to either the university, get your degree, or get into trade school and learn a trade. He made this promise. I gave him a car, sent him on his way, and the car in a couple of years ends up getting flooded in a flood zone. He loaned it to a friend, and the friend didn't have any money, didn't have any insurance, didn't have any means to get the car restored. And then it got a whole bunch of parking tickets, and eventually the car got taken away by the state or the county, whoever. The car is no longer in his possession. And he ends up coming back to California, and he moves in to stay with his mother. And the second one, he ends up leaving home to be with his girlfriend, and they go to school, or she goes to university. He doesn't go to university. He just kind of takes on jobs and, lives kind of off of what she's making. He's making a little money, working at a call center, doing whatever. And lo and behold, they're hanging in there, and eventually they got married. They're doing okay. But he never really achieved that milestone on his own. And I would just say that is the best way to go. If you can't do it on your own, it only makes sense for you to hitch your wagon to somebody that you can collaborate with to make that a successful move. Now, whether or not this is going to be a lasting relationship is totally up to him. Totally up to him, and it's totally up to the young woman. My counsel was that even though this is my son, I really don't think that he's a good choice, in as much as that he's not willing to work hard. He's not willing to make these sacrifices. And although he's a very exceptionally handsome young man, if I were you, I would run in the opposite direction. But to my surprise, they're still hanging in there, And I think they've been together since high school. So kudos to to my second son. And then I have a third son who was a professional dancer, but I really can't say that he was a professional because he made a little money over the years that he was dancing. And right now he's in university trying to finish up his college degree. And I wish him the greatest success, and my hopes go with him, and my youngest, he's working at a restaurant, and he's trying to figure things out and get it together. But one thing I will say is that I'm just so proud of all my children that none of them have criminal records, and they haven't resorted to criminal activities to survive. For that, I'm very grateful. I'm just a little disappointed in these basic milestones of achievement and accomplishment, that they had so many opportunities. Because one, I got into construction trades back when they were 15, 13, 18, and 17. I think that's the age spread of my kids. And at the time, I was trained and licensed, as I currently am now, in electrical, heating and air, plumbing. Let me see. Electrical, plumbing, heating and air, and general construction. I got all those licenses. I got the California B, which is the general contractor's license. That's the one. It's pretty much one of the easiest ones to get. But then you get into the technical trades of electrician. That's the C10 license. I got the C10 license, tested out. Only had to take the test one time for each of these trades. And I had other young men, white, Latino, black. They weren't able to take these tests. They had to take them more than once in order to pass. So I'm really proud that this was in 2008. So I had to been, I was born in 65. You guys do the math, figure out how old I was when I got all these licenses. But I was able to take each exam within the year of 2008 and get licensed in all of these trades. So the C10 is the electrician's license, the C36 is the plumbing's license, the C20 is the HVAC license, and the B. So I got all four of those, and right now I'm studying to get my fire sprinkler license. But it's at a point where, with all of this technical knowledge and skill, if my father had just even one of these trades, I would have been easily a millionaire before my 30th birthday. But these young men do not want to make the sacrifice. They wanted to walk into success, making some vulgar rap songs and being an entertainer. And this is the deception of life in terms of what you think is fair, what you think is going to be the easiest and the right way to go. And ultimately, you end up back to square one, because sometimes people are in the right place at the right time to become super successful. But for the average person, you're going to have to put in hard work, because there's only so much room at the top of the pyramid. And when I got into construction, I was really humble. There was a guy, and I'm going to mention his name. His name is Roy Thomas. He's still alive today. He's a contractor, and he's famous for doing a lot of church building and church production. And I've collaborated with him on several jobs. We did a job in Long Beach where we built a 6,000 square foot building, and it was a house that the pastor converted into a sober living kind of situation. But when I first got started working with him, he told me that, no, in fact, he asked me, he says, look around. And I'm going to kind of look around for us here in the video. And he says, you see all these buildings? And beyond what you see are homes and houses. All these houses have wiring. All of these houses have HVAC systems. All of these houses have toilets, sinks, faucets. How many of these have you participated in putting together? And I'm telling you, I'm looking around right now. None of these buildings did I lay one hand on to do anything except Home Depot. At the Home Depot, I bought stuff. I've laid hands on parts and materials and things like that to do work elsewhere. And that's what I'm doing this morning. And he says, that should humble you. But more than that, it should give you an understanding that you're getting started into a profession where there will be literally no lack in terms of clients, in terms of work. All you have to do is get skilled at it to the degree that you separate yourself from everybody else. I'm gonna do another video later on today, show you guys the progress of that project that I started doing my vlog with. It's a 2-house project where ultimately it's going to be 3 separate living spaces on one lot. But getting back to Roy, he basically said that should humble you, but it should also give you hope and courage in understanding that you'll never go hungry in this trade. You'll never go hungry. You'll never be without work. And the more skills that you acquire, the more in demand you'll be, to where you'll never be without clients. You'll never be without work. That's why I'm in school studying to get my fire sprinkler license. Had a job opportunity. Guy is managing a condominium complex in Marina Del Rey, California. Marina Del Rey is a very exclusive, expensive neighborhood to live in. And they just had a couple of fire sprinkler devices that needed to be repaired. And when I did the pricing estimate, we were only going to spend about $10,000 on all of the materials. But when we actually found out what the cost would be for a license, because only a licensed guy could do this work, the minimum charge that we were going to walk away with, and it was only going to take not even a week and a half to get the work completed. $10,000 plus $80,000. The winning bid was $96,000. Who makes $80,000 in 10 days? I don't know any. That's 2 weeks. That would be what we would bid the job for. But we knew we could get the job done in 7 working full days with 10 grand worth of material. 2 guys. I don't know people that can make that kind of money. But the only way you can get access to this kind of cash flow, you have to have the knowledge. After you get the knowledge, then you get the license, then you get the money. You know, I wish I could have been a rapper, you know. First you get the knowledge by going to work for somebody, then you get the skill, then you get the money, and then you get whatever comes after that. You know, the rappers talk about first you get the power, then you get the money, then you get the hoes, you know, just goofy, you know. No, get the skill, get the license, get the money, get your houses, get your cash flow, get your mailbox money coming in. Then if the hoes come, great. If they don't worry, they will come. They will come, you know. Because I look at women like birds, man. I really do. They flying all around, and you kind of wonder, how are these birds living and surviving? They're living and surviving because God, who's the ultimate man of the universe, has made provision for them. Even Jesus talked about this. He says, do you see birds, tripping or storing up food in their nest? No, they live from day to day, you know. But God makes sure that they're covered. He makes sure that they get fed. And they sing and they're happy, you know. Now these women out here, unlike the birds, they're cackling and barking like dogs because things ain't working out the way in their pea-brain mind imagine. And I'm not saying that to be insulted. I'm saying that to be funny because sometimes you got to laugh at yourself, you guys, to be able to see the goofiness of your thinking. And I just really hope that you guys don't take it as an insult. I hope you guys take it as it's intended, for you to really think critically about your life and what you need to do to get your things together. So with that, I just say, God bless you guys. And I just hope the young women will see the world for what it is and not be so quick to say it's not fair. It's not fair that you have this advantage. And it's not fair that the birds don't have to worry about nothing in terms of food from day to day, because God has made provisions for them. But the whole thing is, that's the reality. Embrace it. You guys only have so long to get exactly what you want, and you're never going to necessarily get exactly what you want, but you can come damn close to being content and satisfied with all of the advantages God has given you. So have a good morning, have a good day, and we'll talk again soon.